All right, this is video 2 in the 10 best lovers of my life, tips for men in relationships. And so my second relationship was Brian, and this was in Tennessee when I was getting my master's degree. I was 27 and he was a Gemini, which I'm Gemini rising, so I notice a lot of my partners tend to have Gemini in there strongly somewhere. He was the best kisser by far of anybody I've ever met. He was also the best flirt of anybody I've met. Typical of Gemini. I really enjoyed that a lot, both of those two things. He had a way of knowing how to make love to my mouth, which is key because tantrically, women's energy, runs down our body, whereas for men, it runs up their body. So in order to address a woman step by step energetically and sexually, you start at the top and move down. So kissing obviously is one of the first steps. So it really works if you're a good kisser, because then that opens the door to the next step. So let's see, what do I want to say about this? Okay. So I'm getting my master's degree, and it just dawned on me that my master's thesis was called something like the antebellum years of dating etiquette. So I was writing a thesis about the dating etiquette during the time of the antebellum, which was kind of like the Elizabethan time period. And it was really fascinating how like picnics were a big deal back then as a way to date and get privacy. But what's funny about it is here I am trying to focus on writing this thesis, and it's like completely impossible while dating Brian because he was just so distracting. And of course, I just wanted to be with him. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to get through this thesis while being in this relationship. And it was one of the hardest things I had to do in leaving the relationship I didn't want to, emotionally or physically. But I just knew that I was never going to get this done and be able to graduate with my master's if I didn't. And I also was spiritually getting a no, because I knew that I had a lot more of my life to live and that I wasn't going to stay in Tennessee. And he was very established with his business and owned a home and everything there. And wasn't going to likely leave, and that it would just really be heart-wrenching if I were to get involved with him and then have to leave, which I knew I was going to, and have that just really rip at our hearts. So it was one of the hardest things to do, to have to say, I can't do this. And but he's definitely been, a memory of one of my best experiences. And he even contacted me after he got married, and we were in touch a bit and are on Facebook. Let's see, that was only a couple months relationship, so that was one of the shorter ones that lasted a few months. And what else? Oh yeah, and it was pretty much non-sexual too, as far as intercourse. Since it was such a short, it was mostly flirting and kissing. So anyway, that's Brian, number 2. And then my third relationship that I'm going to talk about actually jumps 10 years later, because the ones between there really weren't that notable. And this was Che, and he was in Maui. I'm at Maui at this point, because I lived in Hawaii for 10 years. And so Che, this was right when I was started getting training in Tantra. So this started my Tantra career, and I happened to meet him at the same time. And we met at Little Beach, which is a famous nudist beach in Maui, where we hung out a lot. And, he was quite a looker. He traveled the world for 15 years, like performing and doing different odd jobs, traveled the world, and he was kind of settling down more in Maui, and he was the #1 salesman for getting people into timeshare presentations, and he sold, you know, all the activities, like when you go to Hawaii and want to do hang gliding and, you know, dinner cruises and stuff. So he was extremely attractive. You know, he had the perfect tan and these green hazel eyes, and, you know, muscular and all that, and and we got to enjoy all those activities for free. So we had this amazing schedule where we had weekends together plus Wednesdays, and you know, he would say, okay, what activity do you want to do this time? And he would schedule it, and it was free, and because he was, you know, selling them basically, and it was a nice perk. And he even got some, you know, perks with restaurants because he sent so many clients there and so forth. So we had a lot of fun and made a lot of memories. And that relationship was when I was 37. And it was for about a year and a half. And I got to teach him the Tantra that I was learning, you know, as far as how to be with me sexually. And he was much like a Gemini as well. He was a quick learner. So, you know, I was able to teach him my favorite technique, which is where you have 3 pleasure centers going on at once, between the clitoris, the vaginal opening or G-spot, and then the back door, what I call. And, you know, so I trained him how to do that, and so that was highly pleasurable, and it was the first relationship where I taught my boyfriend how to do that, because it's my favorite way. And so we had a thriving, you know, sex life, which I've missed even, you know, to this day. He, I think, was one of my better sexual relationships that I miss. And let's see, what else do I want to say about him? Yeah, he kind of looked like a model. And I think that's, oh yeah, he kind of had one of those complexes, like where he was looking for a mother figure a little bit, and so he really didn't have, you know, too many serious relationships before me. So he was really into it, and you know, he really, I could tell he really enjoyed our time together. And so, you know, I enjoyed the fact that he was so into it, and, you know, planned all those fun activities, and that we just made so many memories together. And I remember going to a relationship training one time, and they said that the couples, you know, she had interviewed couples as far as, you know, what are some of the characteristics of long-term sustainable couples. And so she interviewed them, and a common theme was that they made a lot of amazing memories together in their activities together, and that the activity level of both partners needs to be on the same page. Because if you have a really active person who's partnered with like a homebody couch potato type, it tends to not work. But and I tend to be super active. I'm more active than the typical person. So, you know, and he was, you know, right along with me on that. So anyway, we fit that description. So that's best lover number 2 and 3.